Hey guys, and welcome back to my channel for those of you that have followed along so far in my pregnancy. For those of you that are new, my name is Stacy Kennedy, and I am about to tell you my birth story. So for those of you that don't know, I have been doing weekly updates for my pregnancy, and the last one I did I think was 38 weeks, or maybe it was even 37. And I was meant to do a 39-week update, but then I didn't, and then I actually went into labor at 39 weeks plus 4. So if you'd like to hear my birth story and the journey I've been on, then just keep watching. So I just want to preface this video by saying birth is such a beautiful thing. It's incredible what our bodies are designed to go through, and not one story is the same. So just because I had this experience doesn't mean the next person would have this experience, or anyone for that matter. Every birth story is different, and my birth was beautiful. I had an amazing birth, but I didn't have a great recovery. So if you are pregnant or you're a bit vulnerable to this kind of thing and you've never done birth before, maybe watch this after you've had your baby, just because, yeah, I don't want to put fear into anyone, because like I said, just because this happened to me doesn't mean that it will happen to anybody else. It actually is pretty rare what happened to me. So and then the other side of things is, if I know you personally, this is a very raw video, and I'm going to be extremely vulnerable in it and share pretty intimate details. So if that will freak you out a bit, then maybe don't watch as well. But if those two things don't apply to you, then I'd love to share my story in hopes that it might help someone else out there. So on Friday night or early Saturday morning on October 20th, 2018, at 12 a.m. I had my first contraction. So I had been having Braxton Hicks like throughout the few weeks before, pretty regularly, but none of those contractions were ever consistent or painful. So I knew they were just Braxton Hicks. But at 12 a.m. I had my first contraction that actually was painful. Like, not terribly painful, but it was more uncomfortable than a Braxton Hicks. So I started timing them right away, and like from the start they were already 5 to 6 minutes apart, and they were lasting anywhere from about 45 seconds to a minute long each. So I think that was midnight, and then I went for until about 3 a.m. and I gave my midwife a call just to say, hey, like, I think this is the real deal. This is what's happening. At this point, I think they were a consistent 4 to 5 minutes apart, and they were lasting for a minute each. So she said just to continue laboring at home as long as I could, and so that's what I did. I didn't get any sleep that night, of course. I was having contractions every 4 to 5 minutes. So I labored at home. Quincy was, I just let him sleep because I knew we were in for a long trot. So he was kind of in and out, like he was sleeping, but he was out with me when I needed him. And so yeah, I labored through the night here at home, and then at about, I think it was like between 9 and 10 the next morning, they were about 3 minutes apart at that point, and they were getting very painful. Like I couldn't talk through them or like walk or anything. Like they were getting pretty painful. So I just felt comfortable going into the hospital. I didn't want to labor anymore at home. So we got in the car. Well, we called the midwife and said, I'm coming in. Got in the car. The car ride was really painful, going around curves and over bumps and hills, and strapped to in a seat belt. Trying to have a contraction is not the funnest thing in the world. So that was a little bit rough. But we got there, we got to the hospital. Yeah, we got up there, and I think by the time they checked me anyways, I don't know what time we got there, and it takes a while to get in and sorted. But when they checked me, I think it was probably at 11. Yeah, probably 11-ish at this point. They wanted to check my cervix and see how dilated I was. And at that point, I was 5 centimeters dilated, but she was posterior, which means she was sunny side up. So they're supposed to come out having their, like, facing your butt, but she was facing forward. So, which causes normally it causes a lot of back pain in labor. Sorry, she's just on my lap stirring a little bit. Normally it causes a lot of back pain in labor. But for me, it was causing hip pain. And so I don't know if she was just sitting a funny way. Maybe she wasn't completely posterior. I'm not sure. But all I know is the hip pain was worse than the contractions. Like, I had the worst hip pain because contractions, you get a break from them. But I wasn't getting a break from the pain in my hips. So anyway, they suggested that I labor in the shower because they wanted me to be bent over, so I'd be on my all fours, or I'd be on my knees and kind of hanging over a chair during a contraction, or I'd be standing up and I'd put my arms around Quincy when I had a contraction, around his neck, and lean forward, and that's supposed to be a good position to help them turn. And so I labored in the shower 5 hours maybe. I don't know, it's all a bit hazy. I really have no idea. 5 hours is just a guess, between 11 and then the time that she was born. During that time I got saline injections, which is where they take this shot of saline or something and they put it just underneath your skin, and it's supposed to help numb and take away, like they do it for back pain, and in my case they did it for my hip pain. And those are the most painful shot things that I've ever had. They hurt so bad. Yeah, anyways, it did give me some relief from my hip pain though, so that was good. I was able to just focus on the contraction pain and not the hip pain. Anyway, so when they checked me again, at this point I was 10 centimeters, so I think, yeah, I was in the shower for probably about 5 hours. And yeah, they checked me. I was a 10 and she had turned, so she was in a good position, so that was really good. So from there I moved from the shower into the bathtub because I wanted to have her in the bath. So I was able to start pushing. So I think from what I've been told, I pushed for a total of between 1.5 and 2 hours. So yes, so I pushed and I went between 2 positions, just like leaning back in the bath like you would normally take a bath, or on all fours, and I would have my hands up over the bath and I'd be on all fours. So at this point I was pushing through contractions. And then she started crowning, which was good. So I was exhausted at this point, completely exhausted. I was falling asleep during the breaks of contractions. We have pictures of me just laying back in the tub, like sleeping with my mouth hanging open. I was so exhausted after having been up all night and then, laboring. So anyways, she started crowning, and the main thing I remember are the last 3 contractions. So when they crown, they kind of go in, down, and then up, and then down, and then up, and then you feel them come down and you're pushing so hard, and then the contraction stops and they kind of go back up. And so the third to the last contraction, I remember she went down and she stayed. And so that was so painful because it was like burning, stretching ring of fire. Like she was down, and in between that contraction I didn't have a break because my crotch was on fire. Her head was just like sitting there. And then the next contraction which I'll get into this a little bit later. I think this may be what caused some of the damage that I had. I'm not completely sure, but the next contraction, at this point, I had been being told to push through every contraction. So when the next one came, I just thought, okay, push, like I'm going to keep pushing. Well, they told me too late just to breathe through this one. They wanted her to like not come out all the way. They just wanted her head to continue to stay there to help stretch me. But they had told me that too late, and I had already pushed her head out at the next contraction. So I'll get into that a little bit later, but in my opinion, that's the only thing I can think of is what caused my damage, is that I pushed her head out too quick. I could be totally wrong. But, so yeah, the next contraction, I pushed her head out. And we've got a funny picture of her head just out. Her body's in and her head's out. So, yeah, went through that contraction, and then the break, her head was just sitting out. And then I just remember them saying, all right, the next one, you push your baby out, you're gonna meet her, like one more big push. And so, yeah, I just remember thinking like, I can do this, the last one. And so I did the next one, and she was out. They pushed her through, and because I was on all fours, I pulled her up on me, and then I went back, and she came out beautiful and purple and slippery and slimy, and she was our baby, and it was beautiful. It was so beautiful. Quince and I were both crying. We were a mess. Our baby was here, and it was just the most amazing thing in the world. She was happy because she was still in the water a little bit, so I think she was just quite still calm because her body was still in the water. So I was like, oh, okay, like cry now, breathe. But they assured me she was fine. And so we waited for the the cord to stop pulsing, because I wanted to do delayed cord clamping. So we just sat in the tub for a little bit while that stopped pulsing, and then Quince came around and cut the cord. And then I handed her off to Quince so he could have some skin-on-skin time, and I went over to deliver the placenta. So they put something like in the toilet to catch it because they have to check it over, but I basically just delivered the placenta on the toilet. That was pretty straightforward. Placenta was out, and at this point I thought everything was good, but then this is where it went pear-shaped. So after this, it kind of gets a little bit hazy to me. We went from the toilet, they had me go to the bed because they needed to check me to see if I had any tearing. And I didn't realize it at the time, but now knowing, like having Quincy tell me, I was losing a lot of blood. So from walking from the toilet to the bed, he said it looked like a murder scene, like I was just losing so much blood. And so I just remember getting on the table, and they were gonna check me, and they said it was gonna be pretty painful, so they offered me gas. So Quincy had the baby. Jody, a friend of mine who was there for the birth, she was helping me get through them checking me, helping me just remember to keep breathing in the gas. So they checked me, and they said I had a really bad tear, and at that point they knew they had to get a catheter in because I had started to swell so quickly, and they knew I'd have to go into surgery and get repaired and that kind of thing. So they tried to get the catheter in. I swear they tried at least 5 times. It was the most painful thing because I was so swollen at that point they couldn't find whatever they had to find to get the catheter in. So it was like very painful. And so they confirmed that I had a bad labial tear, which is a front tear. I still don't know what degree. I'm sure it's in my discharge papers, but I haven't actually asked anyone what level of tear I had or whatever. I just know it was enough to have to go into surgery to get repaired. So because I was at a birthing center, I had to be transferred by ambulance to a bigger hospital that could do the stitching and surgery. So that was, I was so lethargic, like, and out of it. I forgot to mention, as I was on the table, they were trying to get her to feed. Like, she was really upset at this point. And because I was so out of it from losing so much blood, like, we've got pictures and I'm just kind of laying there, like, lethargic, and they're holding her, trying to get her on to latch. And I just remember her crying a lot, and they weren't able to get her to get on. She was really upset at that point. And so it was all a little bit stressful. I don't know. I was so out of it. I don't really remember. So I just remember them saying, yeah, we have to transfer you via ambulance. And the unfortunate part of that was that she couldn't come in the ambulance with me because it was classified as an emergency. And so their protocol is it's safer for her to be in a car seat with someone driving her rather than an ambulance that's rushing to a hospital. So poor Quince was thrown in the deep end. It was a really bad storm that night, so it was rainy. Like, and when I say really bad, I'm not exaggerating. I've had people tell me it was the worst rain they've ever driven in that night. It was an extremely bad storm. And so he had to get her, you know, in the car seat and drive her all by himself, like not even a few hours after she was born, by himself. So that was like good on him. Like, he did perfect and beautiful, like, you know, everything was fine, but I know I'm sure it was stressful for him. So that was stressful for me as well. Anyway, so got transferred over to this other hospital, and by the time I got there, I was in so much pain. Now knowing it was because I developed a hematoma along the tear or something. I'm not really sure, but it's basically like a clot of blood that builds up. I'm not really sure the exact science behind it. All I know is that it was so painful, like more painful than the tearing or like the birth, I'd even say. Like, it was so painful. So yeah, at this point I'm at the new hospital. There's doctors everywhere. I've got people poking me in both arms. They're giving me pain relief. They're down there. They were gonna try local anesthetic to try and stitch me up, and so they're putting needles in me down there, trying to numb me there. But I think when they realized that I had the hematoma or something, and then how much pain I was in, they were just like, no, there's no way. Like, we need to take her to theater. So, and again, I was still losing a lot of blood. Quincy tells me now that it was pretty bad. There was just blood everywhere still. So they got me ready to go to surgery. They expressed some colostrum for me. I know, I was so out of it, I couldn't even do it myself. So yeah, a midwife came over and expressed some for me, so that way they could give her a feed, because she still hadn't had a feed yet. She wasn't able to latch when I was still back at the other hospital, or the birthing center. So anyway, they were able to express enough for her so that Quincy could feed her for the night, and then take me off to surgery. So now at this point I started having chest pain, like in my esophagus. Like, it felt like a really tight, like I had something like lodged in my chest. And I don't remember a lot, but I remember just being really scared before I went into surgery, because I knew I was going to be put under. I was just like, I don't know, I was so out of it, but I just was saying to the doctor, make sure I'm breathing during surgery, because I don't know, something's not right here, and I feel like I can't breathe. And I started spitting, like having a lot of excess saliva. I felt like I had to spit up a lot. And so that's what I remember. So yeah, and then they put the mask on and you're out. And so I was told that during surgery, they drained the hematoma, the clot of blood. So they drained that, they stitched me up, and during that process they gave me a unit of blood, which I had to sign and consent beforehand, saying if I needed blood, they could give it to me. So they had given me 1 unit of blood during surgery. So by the time all that was finished and we got to the room, like the ward, I think it would have been probably 4 or 5 in the morning, maybe. I'm not really sure. I know it was quite late. And thankfully, so we're back in the hospital, like in the ward. I was just coming to. I still had really bad chest pain, and I was in a lot of pain down below from the hematoma. And so Quince had to go home. He couldn't stay with me. Thankfully, babies have what's called a hibernation sleep straight after birth. And so she slept through like that whole night, that whole first night for me, because I was exhausted and drugged, and yeah, so thankfully she was a little angel that first night. And so then the next day, which was Sunday, it was okay. I thought I was doing better than what I actually was. So they were testing my iron every day, and it was still really low. So I had to have another unit of blood. I couldn't even sit up without getting dizzy. I was in so much pain, again, because of the hematoma. I couldn't sit. So even laying on my back was painful. The only somewhat comfortable way was on my side. So if you can imagine, the next few days in the hospital were really, really, really hard. I couldn't get up because, again, my iron was so low. I would get dizzy every time I would stand up. Not to mention, I was in so much pain that physically getting up, I had to pull my, I had to have help actually even getting out of the bed. I had a catheter in, and breastfeeding was extremely hard because I couldn't sit. So to be able, in trying to latch a brand new baby and brand new mom, being on your side, breastfeeding takes practice. And so that was really, really difficult to even try. So breastfeeding was really hard. Taking care of her, changing her, doing anything I needed help, I couldn't take care of her. It was very depressing being there. And then the second night I was in the ward, I didn't realize this yet because I forgot to mention, because of the chest pain I was having, I was unable to eat. So I think I was on day 2 or 3 in the hospital, and I still hadn't eaten anything because I was in so much pain here. And I was so weak because I had lost so much blood that I was trying to get my energy up, plus trying to breastfeed. And so I had opened my bowels. Again, I know this is really TMI. I had opened my bowels during labor, and I hadn't eaten since, so I hadn't had to use the toilet in a few days. I had the catheter, but I hadn't had to, do a number 2. And so I think it was my second or my third night in the ward, I had to use the toilet, and I had continence issues, so I went number 2 in the bed. I couldn't control it. And so that was extremely scary. I didn't know why. I couldn't feel it. I had no sensation down there. I had to be cleaned. I had this male nurse cleaning me after he had just changed my baby and
taking care of her because I physically couldn't. And so at this point, I was in the ward. I had just had my 3rd unit of blood because my iron was so low still. I was so weak and so tired. I couldn't sit or move. I was in so much pain from the hematoma and all the damage. My pelvic floor had been ruined. I did nerve damage. My tailbone was bruised. And I couldn't eat. And I couldn't take care of my baby. The nights in the ward were so hard without Quince to help me. Just sharing a room with 3 other women and their babies. It was very, very hard. I'm sorry. So, I don't even remember what day, how many days I stayed in, but I still was having continence issues. I was complaining to them every day that I couldn't eat. They just kept telling me that the damage was from the tube that they put in, the breathing tube for surgery. I kept telling them, no, like it's down here, it's not up here. They kept telling me it was heartburn. I said, no, I've had heartburn my whole pregnancy. I know what heartburn is. This isn't heartburn. I physically can't eat. It brings me to tears even trying to drink water. They just weren't listening. So I was so over it. I was getting depressed. So I kind of put on a bit of a show. I had to prove that I could pee so many units or whatever, like, because they take the catheter out and you have to prove that you can pee, because they don't want to send you home not able to empty your bladder. So I painfully and through tears, it was so painful, drank down so much water so I could pee, to prove that I could pee so I could get out of there. Okay, sorry about that. My camera battery or whatever stopped in the middle of that. So anyways, leaving the hospital, proving that I could pee, probably could have been against my better judgment, because I could have probably done with another unit of blood. They let me go with my iron at like an 80 something, and I think it's supposed to be at like 150 or 100 and I don't know. It was really low still, but they let me go despite not being able to eat and having low iron, trying to feed a baby. I don't know, they just let me go. I kind of put on a little bit of a show like that I was fine, because like I said, I was getting so depressed in the hospital. So I painfully sculled down water, did my little pee test, they were happy, and so they discharged me. And so then we went home, and the next few days were very difficult. I was still in a lot of pain. I still couldn't sit. I still, getting in and out of bed, the same issues, still couldn't eat, but I was at home and I had my husband's support, and so that was, for me, that was extremely helpful to have. Yeah, so this video is gonna be really long if I keep going, but in the next few days, Radiance, which is our daughter, which I haven't even mentioned her name yet, developed a little bit of an infection, so she had to go to NICU, so that added a whole other bit of drama onto the end of it, but I might do that in a different video.
just for the sake of keeping this as our birth story. So like I said, I'll touch on that later, but I just want to say where I'm up to now. Right now we are 15 days postpartum. I'm doing a lot better. I'm not sure what happened with my esophagus. They think it was maybe esophagitis. The only thing is it can be caused by an infection, it can be caused by damage, it can be caused by acid. So I just took really strong acid reducers, and then I also took like an pill that we had that kind of stops ulcers. So I was just kind of taking a few different things to cover all my bases in hopes that it would just go away. And it did, thankfully. So I think about a week and a half postpartum, yeah, I was able to eat my first meal. Oatmeal never tasted so good. Plain oatmeal has never tasted so good. Yeah, so now I am able to eat whatever I want very easily and well. I'm still taking like Zantac just because I want to keep my stomach acid low just to make sure it's fully healed. And then as far as the downstairs area, I'm still in some pain, again, from the hematoma. There's still a bit of numbness down there, but it is a lot better. I'm able to sit in a chair, like this is a recliner, so it's squishy, but I'm able to actually sit in it, which in itself is a huge improvement from where I was before. I've been seeing a physio for my pelvic floor issues, and so I'm working with them to do recovery there. What she told me yesterday, my last appointment, was that in 6 weeks' time, I will be at the point of what a new mom is who's just given birth. So I'm about 6 weeks rougher, or yeah, I've got about 6 weeks of recovery to get to, yeah, new mom status, and then about 4 months for complete recovery. So I'm able to control everything. It's just not great. I have to go when I have to go. Again, that's so much information, but it's just the reality of birth sometimes. So I'm just working on exercises, working on sitting on a chair with some towels to compress it, continuing to, yeah, unfortunately take so I'm trying to stay away. I was on pain meds for so long, I'm trying to not be on them as much just because I am feeding. But we are doing better, and that's the important part. I am recovering. I'm on my way there. I can't walk for a long time because it does feel like everything's gonna fall out, because yeah, there's been some nerve damage to my pelvic floor or whatever. They explained it somehow. So I'm having to take it really easy. Yeah, not walking much. I have to sit and lie as much as possible, which is hard because, you know, babies want to be held and kind of walked around. But thankfully I've got Quincy here, who's been extremely supportive and helpful. And yeah, we are on our way to recovery, and excuse me again, and we've got a beautiful baby girl who is worth it and so much more. She's sleeping on me right now. I don't really want to disturb her, but I will take some video clips of her and add them to this video, and we will introduce you to our beautiful, beautiful Radiance Sage Kennedy, born on the 20th of October 2018 at 5:43 p.m. Mommy and Daddy love you so, so much, baby girl, and you are our entire world. So thank you so much for watching my birth story. Like I said before, everyone's journey is different, everyone's recovery is different. Birth is a beautiful thing. Our bodies are made to do this. Sometimes things just don't go the way we think they will. That definitely happened for me. But again, like I said, we're doing so much better. I'm on definitely on my road to recovery, and yeah, it's gonna be good, and there is a light at the end of the tunnel, and we've got our beautiful girl. So thanks so much for watching. I will see you in my next video. Bye.